Forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. It is possible to forgive someone and not be reconciled to them. And understanding the difference is crucial to our happiness and our well-being. Far too many of us are stuck suffering, unable to forgive because we've confused the two, or we think they have to go together hand in hand in some way. Not so. This one is personal for me. For decades, I repeatedly put myself in emotional harm's way because I thought forgiving someone unconditionally also meant overlooking their behavior and continuing with the relationship as if nothing had ever happened. The two were completely enmeshed in my mind. I even got it into my head that with enough effort and forgiveness on my part, I could reconcile a relationship on my own. No need for an apology, any remorse, or desire to change on their part. Yikes. Again, not so. Even after I finally ended my unhealthy 31-year marriage, I struggled and suffered way more than was necessary because I couldn't bring myself to forgive. For years I clung to my anger and resentment, still believing that forgiving meant I would have to reconcile the relationship in some way, at least as friends. And I just couldn't let myself do that again. It didn't feel like a healthy thing to do. I'm not saying I will never reconcile with this man, but I now know that I don't have to reconcile in order to forgive. I can't tell you the weight that was lifted from my shoulders and my heart once I realized that forgiveness and reconciliation is not only not the same thing, they need not and often should not go together. Once I got that, I was finally able to experience the relief and freedom, the peace and healing that only forgiveness can bring. And it's so important that all of us understand this, and still so many of us don't and are suffering tremendously because of it. This is why I am doing this video, because I think it's high time we cleared up all the misunderstandings once and for all. So let's start by spelling out exactly what forgiveness is and what it is not. Forgiveness is not telling yourself or the other person that what they did is okay. It has nothing to do with overlooking or condoning their behavior. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or having to accept their apology. It also doesn't mean having to continue with the relationship without an apology. Very likely that will only lead to more heartache. Forgiveness doesn't involve having to interact or communicate with the other person in any way. In fact, it is possible to forgive someone who is no longer alive. Forgiveness does not require a relationship with the other person at all. So, what is forgiveness really? Interestingly enough, when we look up the word, the first definition listed is very simple. Forgiveness means to stop feeling anger or resentment towards someone for an offense, a flaw, or a mistake. It has solely to do with how you feel and nothing to do with the other person. And for the record, simple does not mean easy. Forgiveness can be very hard, and only you can say whether or not you are healed enough or ready or willing to release those emotions. Now, the second definition I find even more interesting. Forgiveness also means to cancel a debt. When we've been wronged by someone, we often feel that something valuable has been lost or stolen from us unfairly, whether that be something physical or emotional, tangible or intangible. We feel the offender owes us in some way, at the very least with a sincere apology. It can be very difficult to simply forgive the person of that debt and accept the injustice of it all, knowing that they will never have to pay for it. It's not fair. They don't deserve it. And that very well may be true. But what if the repayment never comes? Sometimes an offense is so big it can never be repaid. Sometimes the offender is no longer alive. And sometimes the offender feels completely entitled and justified in committing that offense and feels no remorse whatsoever. What then? As long as we refuse to forgive that person of their debt, as long as we cling to our hope and need that that person will repay us in some way, as long as we continue to hold on to our anger and resentment over the injustice of it all, we are the ones stuck paying for that debt over and over and over again. Just like a bank that winds up holding on to bad debt, there comes a time when it is in our best interest to cut our losses, forgive the amount due, and move on. And the bank doesn't just forget or overlook an unpaid debt. They forgive that debt on their books in order to keep their books clean, because they understand that by holding on to that debt on their books, they are slanting their perception of the overall health of their business. And the cost of carrying bad debt forward just gets bigger. I mean, let's face it, it feels bad. It feels really bad. We might think we're making that other person pay by holding on to our negative thoughts and emotions, but honestly, we are the ones that are paying the highest price. Therefore, forgiveness also means to stop feeling anger and resentment for the injustice of it all, to give up the hope or the need that that offender will ever pay us back, and free ourselves of the burden of the debt. One of the best definitions for forgiveness I have ever heard says that forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different than it was. To let go of the past we thought we wanted, the past we thought should have been, and accept the fact that it was what it was. Wow. Let that one sink in for a moment. A lot of our resentment or resistance toward forgiveness stems from our resistance toward the past, what was. And that is an awful lot of energy that could be going toward creating something really wonderful, going toward something that we have absolutely no control over and will never, ever be able to change. Now, what does all this have to do with reconciliation? Well, I did say that it is possible to forgive someone and not be reconciled to them. But what exactly is the difference? I want to give you a very straightforward, line-by-line comparison between the two to make it crystal clear. Forgiveness focuses on the offense, while reconciliation focuses on the relationship. Forgiveness requires no relationship, while reconciliation requires a relationship where two people in agreement walk together toward the same goal. Forgiveness can be given by one person, while reconciliation requires at least two people. Forgiveness is extended in one direction, whereas reconciliation is reciprocal and involves a two-way direction. Forgiveness is a decision to release the offender, while reconciliation is the effort to rejoin the offender. Forgiveness involves a change in thinking about the offender, while reconciliation involves a change in behavior by the offender. Forgiveness is a free gift given to the one who has broken trust. Reconciliation is a restored relationship based on restored trust. Forgiveness is extended even if it is never, ever earned. Reconciliation is offered because it is earned. Forgiveness is unconditional, regardless of a lack of repentance, while reconciliation is conditional and is based on repentance. Man, when I first learned this, it blew my mind. I mean, boy, did I have it all wrong. And many relationships are worth reconciling. And once we understand everything that it entails, we can see that it's possible if everyone does their part. We can also see that as long as there is no repentance or desire to change on the part of the offender, to continue to try to reconcile the relationship on your own is not only futile, it opens yourself up to more hurt and disappointment. Now, one last thing. I know that a lot of us have heard that forgiveness is for ourselves and not for the other person. But I want to talk for a moment about why. Why is it so important for us to forgive? If it isn't clear, holding on to our anger and resentment for prolonged periods of time does us harm. Not only are these negative emotions affecting our health, they weigh us down and hold us back, get in the way of our happiness and well-being. They shut down our heart and keep us stuck in that past hurt, unable to fully embrace or even recognize all of the beautiful possibilities that are available to us now or in the future. We will never be able to fully step into or live from our highest potential, become who we are meant to be, as long as we are holding on to that anger and resentment. You deserve to be free and happy. Let go of what no longer serves you and make room for all the wonderful things that do. Forgiveness frees us from the bondage of the offense and the offender. It is a gift to ourselves that is worth every effort. I could go on and on about this subject. And there is so much more that we can learn about reconciliation, how to reconcile, how to forgive. One of the biggest obstacles to forgiveness that I've ever seen is our need to forgive ourselves first. But all that is for another day. In the meantime, I hope you found this useful. If you did, please click like, consider sharing or subscribing to my channel, and check out my other links in the details down below. In fact, there is a link down there where you can get a free PDF download of that line-by-line comparison between forgiveness and reconciliation. It's very useful. I hope you take advantage of that. And again, like I said, it's free, my gift to you. And in the comments below, let us know your thoughts and your experiences around this. Let's help each other learn and grow together. And I will see you soon.